This is again City of Natchitoches versus Travis Hines. We have some motion business to take care of first, which is set for today. The first motion was that last Wednesday, we had a meeting to resolve the demand for court-appointed attorney motion filed by you, Mr. Hines. Did you go and see the public defender's office?
Yes, Your Honor.
And what was their position, or did you fill out an application?
I filled out that application, turned it in, and was denied.
Did they give you a reason for denial?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, I don't believe that, because I called them myself just to check, because I told you I would call them, and apparently, they denied you because you had sufficient resources to hire an attorney. When they say it is a public defender's office, it is there for the purpose of providing lawyers to people who cannot afford them, and they apparently, in their opinion, felt that you had the resources to hire an attorney. So that is why they denied you, and they would have told you that, and they would have told you that in person. That's why they tell people that. They don't just say you're denied and leave you.
Yes, sir. They did tell me I was denied, and leave it at that.
That's unlikely, but anyway, so they did deny you for lack of, so you have the opportunity is what they're saying to hire an attorney. You just have chosen not to. That's your choice. If you have the financial means, you can or you cannot, but apparently, according to their records, you have the financial means to hire an attorney, and I'm assuming you're choosing to go forward.
Your Honor, I asked them what their cutoff was for the minimum, and they wouldn't tell me any. Like it's supposed to follow the guidelines for about $12,700 above the poverty level.
It is, but it's also for assets and resources, and if they feel that you have money, either saved or available to you, you will not qualify. It's the same for legal services, same for criminal defense. Now, I did not, as I have to apparently always reiterate, there will be no audio or video recording in this courtroom. This is per the Supreme Court. That order stands, and I hate that we have to continue to say that, but I will. So if there are any audio or video recording, I will find that to be contempt of this court, and I'll respond accordingly. That goes for anybody, as well as witnesses or parties. So as a result, we're going forward, and I will, as I told you before, it is not my position as to whether you have a court-appointed attorney. I can only refer you to them. They have denied you, so that is your response to your demand for a court-appointed attorney. Secondly, you have filed last week a motion to recuse myself pursuant to Louisiana Civil Code Criminal Article 151. I have had the opportunity to research your motion, and I'm going to deny it for the following reasons. First of all, there is no such thing as Louisiana Code of Criminal Procedure Article 151. It does not exist. There is a Civil Code of Procedure Article 151, but that is not relevant here, as the processes for recusal in a criminal case and a civil case are completely different. So the facts that you have pled do not support the law that you have cited. Therefore, I am denying your motion to recuse. I'm signing it in open court, and you can be presented a copy today. The third motion today is the motion that you had refiled an objection to denial of motion in limine to suppress certain evidence. In other words, you're asking again for the motion that you filed previously on March 9th, a motion in limine to suppress certain evidence and set suppression hearing pursuant to Louisiana Civil Code Article 703. You had asked that, and at the time I didn't deny it. I delayed it saying that we would address it at the trial level, but you have re-urged it, so I will respond to it today. Do you have any argument to give on that?
Yes, sir. I'd also like to resubmit the motion to dismiss as well.
Okay, we can take all that at once, so go ahead and present what you want.
Yes, sir, Your Honor. The motion to suppress evidence. It was a foundation of laws. There is no law. There is no court cases that have come directly out of Natchitoches for setting precedents on our Fourth Amendment protections. But in surrounding cities not far from this Natchitoches, there has been court cases that have ruled in the defense's favor over the issue of protected rights. Under the U.S. Constitution and the Louisiana Constitution, and also in the Code of Criminal Procedure, and that's not only a favorable ruling for defendants, but as well as them taking on the plaintiff role as well, and suing police for excessive force as well. And there may not be any rulings that came directly out of Natchitoches, But in the state there have been, or have gone to the Supreme Court, the 5th Judicial District, that have ruled in the defendant's favor. That's what I'd like to add to that.
Okay, and that is on behalf of which motion?
The motion to suppress evidence and dismiss.
Mr. Benjamin?
Your Honor, may it please the court, Cloyd Benjamin on behalf of the city of Natchitoches. Your Honor, we would just submit to the court's ruling on this. We think that there have been no sufficient grounds for the motion, that there is no grounds for any suppression motion, there is no grounds for any other motions at this point, and the state is ready to proceed.
Anything else, Mr. Hines, before I rule?
No, Your Honor.
Well, your objection to deny motion in limine to suppress certain evidence, in paragraph 9, you state that I said, apparently, that I know the district attorney's office is not going to introduce its evidence. That's incorrect. I said that they had not mentioned the evidence. This is significantly different. They did not mention the evidence, so I said it may be moot. That's why I thought we'd hold off on it to see if they actually do introduce that evidence. I have no idea what the state is going to produce, because I'm not part of the discovery process. You are, and you have been submitted whatever they're going to produce today, so it really is a little early, in my opinion. But if you want an answer, I'm going to deny it. And the reason I'm going to deny it is because you wanted to speak about this, and Mr. Benjamin argued that you should be put under oath. Either way, I have tried to prevent you from or protect you under your Fifth Amendment right of the Constitution, which you mention very often. And if you want to protect your rights under the Constitution, you probably should not testify in a motion hearing, I would think. You leave that for the trial, and even then, you are not forced to testify. But anyway, if you would like to speak on this, you are welcome to do it. My position is I do not see that it matters. You are saying there are no cases from Natchitoches, Louisiana, under the Napoleonic Code, which means that precedence doesn't have the same effect in Louisiana as it does in other jurisdictions, and you are in Louisiana. So my position is I am not going to grant your motion to dismiss. As I'd stated earlier, I do not feel that this statute is unconstitutional, and that's what you had argued in your motion to dismiss. I don't think it is unconstitutional, and as such I'm not going to dismiss it. Regarding the evidence, it hasn't been admitted yet, but I'm not going to suppress it. What that means is I'm denying your motion to suppress it, but you can certainly raise any issues you want during the trial if you think evidence is somehow not fit to be entered into the record. But I'm going to deny it at this time, both your re-objection motion to deny motion in limine, as well as your motion to dismiss. And I think that covers all the motions that are set for today, unless y'all have anything else.
Your Honor, I have a request to emotional support sit next to me. I have a man named Robert that sits at the desk if the court...
Only if he is an attorney. The only person you can have with you is either an attorney to represent you, otherwise it would be the illegal practice of law to have someone who would be consulting with you during this. But you're welcome to take breaks and consult all you want. But as far as a representative, no, you cannot unless they are licensed in Louisiana.
Yes, Your Honor. How do breaks work?
You ask if you need a break.
Okay.
And I mean, obviously, there is a limit on how many breaks you can have during a day. There is no magic number, but I would imagine that you don't want to take a break every 5 minutes. But, yes, if you need a break, you're welcome to ask for one.
I also have something else I'd like to add, Your Honor. Your Honor, I ask the court to take judicial notice of the United States Constitution and the Louisiana Constitution and apply them to this trial. Your Honor, please also state, for the record, Your Honors and Prosecutor's Office's public office bond number as required by public officials, pursuant to Louisiana Revised Statute 42-181.
That's not something that's done primarily at the beginning of a trial. If you wish to have that, you can certainly get it from my office, but that's not part and parcel of every trial that started. I'll deny that if you will, but I'm happy to apply the Constitution since it's the Constitution, and that goes for every case that comes before this court. So, yes.
Your Honor, I also ask the court to exclude and sequester the witnesses.
Mr. Benjamin?
No objection, Your Honor.
What?
Your Honor...
Well, let me finish. What the defendant has asked today is that there is a request to sequester witnesses. What this means is that only the witnesses that are testifying at the time will be present in court. I'll ask the witnesses to come forward who both parties plan on calling. At that time, I will take your name and have you sworn in, and then you must leave the courtroom until it is your time to testify. So Mr. Hines, do you have any witnesses?
Also, I'd like to add, Your Honor, I ask that witnesses bring no documents to the stand. And yet, your question was?
Well, I have no idea what they plan on bringing. There may be introduced evidence at times, so I'm not going to grant that, because I have no idea. That's a blanket prohibition, and I have no idea what each witness will be bringing or not bringing, but you can object to anything per witness, you know, if someone brings something you feel is inappropriate.
Yes, Your Honor. Are we starting individually, or?
I'm just asking who you asked to sequester witnesses, so I need to know who the witnesses are you plan on calling.
Yes, Your Honor. It would be Mrs. Roslin, Officer Miller, Officer Favors, and Davis.
Okay, and I assume those are similar witnesses for you?
Yes, sir.
Call any witnesses you want to the front, please.
Your Honor, the witnesses for the state will be Officer Favors, Officer Davis, Officer Miller, and Communications Director Stackhouse.
I meant to add the dispatcher as well.
That's fine. Has she been called? Is she present in the court?
She will be called.
Okay, and are there any non-representatives for the library who will be present?
MMM.
They need to come forward.
Mrs.
Parker.
Mrs. Parker. Mr. Jimenez.
Let me explain to y'all what is going on. There's a request by defense to sequester witnesses. This is an attempt to make sure everyone just doesn't hear what is testified and repeat what's said on the stand. It's used often in many trials. What it means is the awkwardness of you don't get to sit in here, and you can sit in the hallway or wherever you choose to be. However, you cannot be in the courtroom until it is your time to testify. I'm going to ask that you all be sworn in now and make sure all the witnesses are in the courtroom or all the witnesses that will be called, so that there is no overlap. Is this everybody? Everybody you've called?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, have them sworn in, please.
Do you solemnly and sincerely and truly declare and affirm that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Y'all can't go far. Please don't leave the building or anything like that. You can stand outside certainly, but please don't go far, because I do not know when your time will be to be called, and y'all can step outside, please. We'll call you individually when it is your time to testify.
Your Honor?
Yes?
Will there be opening statements?
There can be.
There can? Okay.
Is there a Nakata Scott in the courtroom? Nakata Scott? Miss Scott?
No.
And I'm assuming anybody else left in the courtroom is not going to be a witness in this trial?
That is correct, Your Honor.
I'm just asking, is there anybody else present in court? I don't mind people watching. There is nothing wrong with that. I'm just asking if there's anyone else who is going to testify. They do need to come forward and then leave the courtroom. So, yes, this is the state's case. So Mr. Benjamin, if you would like, you can give opening argument statements.
Your Honor, may it please the court, today the state is going to show that on January 22nd, 2022, that the defendant, Travis Hines, violated first of all, he violated Code of Criminal Procedure Article 215, which indicates basically when there is reasonable suspicion, an officer has the right to do an investigatory stop and to check out the person in plain language, to check out the person and determine what's going on. We will show that there was reasonable suspicion. We will show by witnesses that there was reasonable suspicion to believe that something was, or about, or could have happened, something criminal in nature, and that there was reason to stop the defendant and to check out the situation. We will show and we will prove that the defendant failed to cooperate and failed to give his name as required by the law. That is what the state will show. We will meet those elements, and at the very end of that, we'll ask that the defendant be found guilty of LARS 14.108, failure to identify himself by resisting an officer as required by the Louisiana Constitution and is required by statutory law. That is essentially what the state will prove today. Thank you.
Mr. Hines?
Yes, Your Honor. May it please the court. I plan to show you today that my person was never met to the standard to produce ID to an officer as per my Fourth Amendment rights. Therefore, my person never met the standard of resisting or obstruction. With my exhibits, I can show you how my person was well within the Fourth Amendment protections and not obligated to identify at the time. Therefore, this arrest and charges are unlawful according to the Louisiana Revised Statute 14-108. You'll see how the cities were out of their authority at the time said officers arrested my person.
You just mentioned exhibits. Now, my understanding is we've already completed the discovery process. The exhibits you are going to use are the exhibits that have been provided to you by Mr. Benjamin's office, correct?
Yes.
So the exhibits that you have are the same exhibits that they presented you, am I right?
Yes, Your Honor.
There are no other exhibits that Mr. Benjamin has not had the opportunity to review because that was the long process of discovery. So, I'm assuming that everything you plan on bringing is something that Mr. Benjamin has already presented to you?
Yes, Your Honor.
There are no other exhibits, documents, witness statements, or videos, or anything like that.
There are none, Your Honor.
Only the ones that he has already presented to you? Okay, you may proceed.
Your Honor, the state would call Officer Stackhouse.
Is that the dispatcher?
Yes.
Please come forward and have a seat.
Okay.
Sir, in the time may I get a drink? Take a minute to just get a drink and then a break.
Sure, well, how long are you planning to take?
I just want to get 2 swigs of water and I'll return.
Okay, and what is your name, ma'am?
Christine Stackhouse.
All right, sir, you may proceed.
Ma'am, would you please state your name for the record?
Christine Stackhouse.
And Officer Stackhouse, by whom were you employed?
Natchitoches Police Department.
What is your position of employment with the Natchitoches Police Department?
Police officer/communications officer supervisor.
In connection with your employment, what are your duties?
I make the schedules for the dispatchers, monitor the calls, CAD calls, entries, make schedules, fill in when needed. Just pretty much manage the communication division on top of working patrol when needed.
So would it be correct that you are the supervisor for dispatch and
Calls.
calls?
Yes.
Would that include both radio traffic and dispatch?
Yes, sir.
And any 911 calls as well?
Yes, sir.
How long have you been in that position?
A total of 3 years. 3 years?
3 years?
Yes, sir.
Typically, let's talk about 2 things. Let's talk about calls that come into the police department. Typically, how does that work?
911 calls come through. If they call from a cell phone, most of those calls are going through. They process through the Natchitoches Parish Sheriff's Department. Their dispatchers answer the phone, 911, what's your location? If it's in the city, then they transfer the call over to the city dispatchers. If they call from a landline, then the 911 calls go straight to the police department phone line. And then we get non-emergency calls that come in on our admin lines.
So the calls that come to the police department, are those calls recorded?
All calls are recorded.
And after those calls are recorded, what happens with those calls?
Well, all calls are saved to our system, which is higher ground, and so, they are just there. And if anyone needs a copy of the recording, then they'll contact me or Captain Jones or Lieutenant Jessica Williams, who's over our IAA. But most of the time, all of the requests go through Captain Johnson or Lieutenant Williams, and they will contact me for the recordings.
Are those calls identifiable by case number or times of calls?
Times of calls.
And those are they stored on a secured system?
Yes.
Okay, so with respect to dispatch radio transmissions, let's talk about that. How well whether or not tell us whether or not radio transmissions are recorded?
They are.
And how are they recorded?
We use Motorola radio system, but all the traffic goes through higher ground. Like the recordings and everything is through higher ground.
Are those stored on a secure system?
Yes, sir.
And are those capable of being downloaded and transferred based upon date?
Yes.
And those can be saved upon disk or some other kind of device?
Yes, sir.
And that is a secure system as well?
Yes, sir.
On the one hand, were the telephone calls that came in relevant to an incident involving Travis Hines on or about January 22nd, 2022, were they recorded?
Yes, sir.
Were the radio transmissions recorded?
Yes, sir.
So both the telephone and radio were recorded on the system that you just indicated?
Yes, sir.
And you supervised that system?
Yes.
So you're familiar with these particular pieces of information?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
No further questions.
All right, Mr. Hines?
Your Honor, I'm going to be asking Miss Stackhouse questions about only 2 things. 1, the 911 call from the library to the police, and 2, the dispatch message that was then communicated to the officer or officers. I would like the clerk to be ready to play the 2 audio recordings, which Mr. Benjamin's office gave me on a thumb drive, and I provided that thumb drive to the court clerk.
Is that right?
Yes, because he said it was his discovery that he would use, and so I gave it to Monica.
Okay.
Judge, I'm going to object to that. Firstly, that's my evidence. He didn't offer any evidence. If anyone is going to offer that evidence.
Well, he said he would use your evidence. He said his evidence would be your evidence, but I think that he turned that thumb drive back to Monica to provide that evidence. In other words, to give you his evidence, he was giving you in essence the thing back.
Whatever is the court's pleasure.
Well, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. In other words, do you have that thumb drive in your possession, sir?
Your Honor, I gave the thumb drive weeks ago to the clerk.
Right, to give it back to them, because you said that your evidence was the same as his evidence. So that evidence was provided to Mr. Benjamin because I'd asked, do you have any evidence? And you said, I will give evidence. Then you were like, this is the evidence I'm planning on giving. And so we transmitted that back to Mr. Benjamin. That's what you're supposed to do. Just like he gave you an envelope full of stuff, we gave him what you gave to us. We're a conduit. We don't hold on to things unless they are put into a trial setting, but we are only a conduit for discovery. We're not here to be a clearinghouse. So we did provide that to your office back from whatever he gave us.
Your Honor, this particular witness is a supervisor of the entire system.
Okay.
She can authenticate the evidence, but she cannot attest to that because she was not the dispatcher. She didn't take the calls. She didn't hear the back and forth. She is merely here to authenticate the system and how it works.
Right.
So if he wants to play that, or if he wants to hear that, this is not a witness that can attest to that, and that would be my objection. She was not a first-hand party to that. She is merely the person who can authenticate it, because she is the custodian.
Yeah, that is accurate. My question, I guess, is, do you have?
We do.
Okay, can.
This is not the proper.
No, but do you have the documentation?
Yes, sir, we have it.
Can you provide it back to Mr. Hines? Because apparently, he thought he was lending it to us.
Your Honor, at the time of his case in chief, he certainly was able to do whatever, but this particular witness is not first party to this.
Correct.
She can't comment on it.
That's correct. I'm just saying the first part is just to give him back his, I guess, what he planned on giving you. I'm assuming you didn't make a copy, Mr. Hines, when you gave us to give him your discovery?
Your Honor, I made several copies.
Okay.
I have copies on here I could play, but
I guess that's what you'll have to do, because it's your job to keep copies of anything you provide to anybody, just like a motion or anything else. If you gave that to us to give that to him, we gave it to him. So, I mean, I'm assuming that you would make a copy of something and not just give him the actual item.
Yes, Your Honor, this...
Judge, just so we're clear, we gave the defendant everything.
Right.
Now, if he provided us something backing him saying that he's complying and comporting with discovery, we have no way of to know whether that's his only copy. We gave him what we were intending to do.
Right.
So at this point he can't blame us and say, oh, by the way.
No, you're not required to give it back. I just asked if you had it, because
we have it.
It's his obligation to produce any evidence he wishes to produce. Again, back to the actual decision of the witness. This witness is an overseer and not the actual party to the voices on the line. In order to authenticate a recording, you have to have someone who is a party to the communication.
Yes, sir. I requested the actual person present who took the calls to serve as a witness.
Okay, so you've subpoenaed somebody?
Yes, Your Honor. I subpoenaed the name. It's Nakata Scott.
Okay, and I called for that name earlier, and she did not appear. Do you have any idea where?
She is at the desk. We can get her over here if you need us to.
Okay, well, she's been subpoenaed.
Judge, but this is not his case in chief.
Oh, I know, but I'm just saying she has been subpoenaed. In other words, what he's saying is, we are saying you can't use this witness for what you want to attempt to do. You're saying you want to use the witness, but that witness isn't here yet, but she does need to be here. So y'all need to contact her if you can. She is under subpoena. In other words, we're not going to do any more with this witness, I'm assuming. If all you are going to ask her about is the tape, she is not here to authenticate the tape. He is talking about the system. So I guess you have no other questions for her, or do you have questions?
No, sir. No, Your Honor.
Then you're free to go.
All right, thank you.
And I'm assuming this witness is excused?
Yes, sir.
No reason to have her stay here?
I have no reason.
You're excused. Thank you. All right, your next witness, Mr. Benjamin.
Your Honor, the state would call Mrs. Rosalind Parker.
Your Honor, so I need to access the videos and audio. I didn't know that the court clerk wouldn't just, hold it for the trial. That was...
No, you gave it to us. We asked you for your documents, and you said these are all my documents. So we gave it to Mr. Benjamin. That's just like he gave you a package of information. He didn't say here, clerk, hold this. He gave you the documentation. When you gave to us to give to Mr. Benjamin, we gave it to Mr. Benjamin. That's an exchange of documents. That's all, we're just handing it from one to the other.
Yes, Your Honor. I should have held on to this until trial date.
No, you should have made a copy of it. When you're giving something to somebody, you should make a copy of it because what you've done is you've given your original one, I assume, to Mr. Benjamin. But that's what is required. You know, anytime you give anything at any point, you make a copy of it. So in this circumstance what happened was he said here's my package of stuff, and he literally did in court, handed you the package of stuff, and then you said, all I'm going to do is use his documents, and you gave him back the drive or gave us the drive to give to him, and that's what we did. We don't hold anything. Like I said, the only part that we hold is when evidence is put into record, and I assign the exhibit number, and it is then put into record. That's the only documents that we hold on to. We are not here to exchange information between the two of you.
Yes, sir.
It happened because you asked us to give it to him, so we did. I mean, you could have walked over to the DA's office and handed it to them.
Yes, Your Honor.
So anyway, it's your witness, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Ma'am, would you please state your name for the record? And would you speak up?
Rosalind Parker.
Mrs. Rosalind Parker, what is your professional address?
452nd Street, Natchitoches, Louisiana 71457.
And what is located at 450 2nd Street?
The public library.
And are you employed at the public library?
I am.
What is your position?
I am the branch manager.
How long have you been branch manager?
I don't know. 7 years. I don't know.
7 years?
I'm not sure about branch manager. 6 or 7 years. Somewhere around there.
What are your particular duties as branch manager?
I manage the branch, the employees. I'm also the one that's called when there are problem patrons. Sometimes I work the desk.
Is a component part of that particular position that you watch out for safety concerns of the library as well?
Yes.
So you're obviously concerned with safety?
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about the patrons, the people that come to the library. Who typically comes to the library?
All people. We have children. We have adults. We have people that are looking for jobs. We have people that are there coming for us to help them get assistance, being public assistance, food stamps, whatever. Some people are homeless. Some people are not. Some people are just there for leisure to read. So we have everybody comes in there.
So it's true that you pretty much allow anyone in the public to utilize the library?
Yes.
But you're concerned with safety, correct?
That's correct.
On or about January 22nd, 2022, do you recall an incident in the library?
Yes.
Do you recall what that incident involved?
Yes.
And who was that?
Mr. Hines.
And is he seated in the courtroom?
He is.
And where is he seated?
Right there.
So he's seated to my left?
Yes.
Your Honor, we would like the record to reflect that the witness has identified the defendant, Travis Hines.
So noted for the record.
Is the parish library located within the city limits of Natchitoches?
It is.
Your Honor, we'd like the record to reflect that the witness has indicated the jurisdiction of the library being in the city of Natchitoches.
So noted for the record.
On January 22nd, 2022, was there anything that out of the routine caught your attention at the library?
Yes.
What was that?
It was when Mr. Hines came in. He came into the building. I was working on the 2nd floor, me and my coworker, Carlo. And when he walked in, I addressed him and said, "Hi, how are you?" He did not respond, but he did have 2 large bags with him, and he looked very angry in the face. He continued to move around looking throughout the library and checking the exit doors. He seemed like he was looking for something. He went back towards our stairwell, looked up to the third floor, but he didn't go up. He just looked up. And then when he came back out, I asked him, I said, "Can I help you?" And he responded very aggressively to me, and he said, "What is it would you like to help me with?" And my response to him was, "Sir, I'm just asking a question." And at that point, Carlo looked back at me because, it upset him also, and then he continued to do what he was doing. He went up to the third floor that time. When he went up to the third floor, Carlo looked at me and he said, "He can't go up there." I said, "I know, but it's locked." And he went up there, and he realized the door was locked and came back down. And when he came back down, he went straight to the back. And at that point, we were very alarmed by the way he was acting. So I told Carlo I would walk outside and call the police to come by and check him out and make sure everything was okay. So I stepped outside, and I called the police office and asked for them to come by.
Let me ask you this. So let's talk about those exits. The exits that he went to. Do you recall the exits that he went to?
He went to the exit over by the DVD section, which is an emergency exit.
And is that marked emergency?
Yes.
Did he push on that door?
It sounded as though he did.
Okay.
I can't see the door from where I was. I could only hear.
But you heard it?
Yes.
You heard him tugging on the door. Did that cause an alarm for you?
It did.
And did he go to another door?
The door going to the stairwell, he kept going back to that one.
Okay, you indicated he went up the stairs?
He did.
And the third floor is off limits, is it not?
It is.
Is that considered a restricted area?
It is.
And it is locked?
It is locked.
What's on the third floor?
It's just offices, and there's a meeting room up there, but you have to schedule it to use it.
So the third floor is not typically an area that patrons would go to?
No.
And there is no need to go to the third floor, is there?
No.
Do you recall what he was wearing?
He had on a green jacket. Other than that, I don't remember if he had on jeans or he had on pants, but I don't know what kind of pants they were.
Was there any kind of other thing that he had, a purse, backpack, or?
Yes, he had 2 backpacks. He had one on his shoulder and he was carrying on down like this in front of him.
Did that cause you any concern?
Yes.
Based on the totality of what you saw, what went through your mind?
Honestly, with the way things.
Objection, speculation.
Who?
Well, the witness was a witness, so I think that she can answer to what she felt at the time. I think that she may or may not be right, but it's a question of what was in her mind at the time concerning the circumstances, and since she was a direct witness, I'll allow it.
You may go.
Honestly, I just thought about all the things that have happened in the world with people showing up to churches and public places shooting public places up. Also, the Boston bombing was a backpack that was sat down.
And you previously indicated that one of the component parts of your scope of employment is safety?
Yes.
To be vigilant?
Yes.
Would that be correct to say that?
Yes.
And in your opinion, were you being vigilant by the suspicions that were raised?
Yes.
Did you indicate that you made a call?
I did.
Did you 911, or did you dial the number?
I dialed the police office number.
You dialed the police department number, and when you dialed the police department number, do you recall speaking to someone?
I did.
Did you have discussion with them?
I did.
And have you had an opportunity to hear that again?
I have.
Your Honor, I would like to ask the clerk we have that particular piece of information available. I'd like to ask her to key up the 911, and I'd like to mark it as Exhibit 1.
This will be State's or City's Exhibit Number 1.
Now, your chief for me to help you?
Yes, this is Owsley. I'm calling from the Natchitoches Parish Library. Could you have an officer come by here? There is a patron here that's acting very strange.
I'm sorry. Can you hold just a moment for me?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm sorry about that, ma'am. You said there's somebody suspicious in the library?
Yes, he's acting really strange. He has some backpacks with him, and he's looking around the place. I asked him if I could help him. He asked me what did I want to help him with. Then he tried to go up to the third floor, which is locked, and like he's checking all the doors and everything. I don't know.
Can you give me a description of him?
White male, I guess about 6 feet tall. He has, it looks like he had like a little beard.
What is he wearing now?
Oh, I walked outside to call you because I didn't want him to know I was calling.
Okay.
I'm not, I think he had a green army jacket on. I think he did.
Okay, I'll get someone en route.
Thank you.
Where's the 125?
25.
So, Mrs. Rosalind Davis, you've heard that particular call, haven't you?
Yes,
And was that you on the call?
it was.
And you recognize your own voice?
I do.
And you remember making that call?
I do.
And is that consistent with what you just testified to?
Yes.
Now, would you admit that there might be a couple of integral details that are a little bit misplaced?
Yes,
You were very detailed on that particular call, correct?
I was.
And having heard that, is that consistent with what you said and what you saw?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd like to offer the transactional call to Dispatcher 911 as City Exhibit 1 and have that into evidence.
Your position.
No objections, Your Honor.
All right, so ordered.
I'm assuming that the police officers arrived. Did some police officers arrive?
Yes.
And when they arrived, do you recall one or two arriving or what?
So I could see when they arrived from the second floor window. And when I saw them pulling up, I went downstairs. I told Carlo that I would go downstairs and give them a heads up of what was going on. And at first, I only saw the two officers, which was Officer Favors and Officer Davis. And I spoke with Officer Davis and told him that the guy was up on the second floor. I told him, we were concerned with how he was acting and the things he was doing. And since I had called, we had heard a lot of banging in the back. We couldn't tell what he was doing back there, but he was taking a lot of stuff out of his backpack.
So you heard that noise?
Yes.
And that concerned you as well?
It did.
Meanwhile, once the officers arrived, do you recall where the defendant was?
He was in the back magazine area on the second floor.
I want to show you a photo.
Okay.
That I am going to mark as Exhibit 2. May I approach the witness?
Absolutely.
I'd like for you to look at this. Can you see that?
Yes.
Can you describe to the court what this is?
This is our magazine area. There are magazines here. There is a sitting area here. It's a bar that's overlooking the parking lot, and this is just more seating area here.
Did you ever see the defendant in this area? Did you ever see him in this area, the defendant?
Yes.
Could I get you to place a mark, circle, or X by where you saw him, please? May I ask her to do this?
Absolutely.
Can you do it a little bit so we can?
Do what?
A little but more maybe?
Oh, okay.
Your Honor, for the record she is placing a circle with an X on the set of orange chairs in the photo.
All right, so noted.
And that's where you recall he was?
Yes.
Do you recall anything else being in the picture once he was here? Did you see him or observe anything else?
No. I mean, besides him having those bags and taking things out, we tried to stay away from that area. We were afraid of him.
You were afraid?
Yes.
Okay, Your Honor, I'd like to offer into evidence Exhibit 2.
All right. Mr. Hines? All right. So entered.
Thank you. When the officers arrived, you indicated that you told them what was going on, correct?
That's correct.
And where were you at that particular time when they arrived?
I met them right out the back door, right by where we park the bookmobiles at, so in the parking lot but near the building.
Okay, and you met them before they went up?
I did.
Do you recall anything else about this day?
No.
Your Honor, I have no further questions of this particular witness.
All right. Mr. Hines, your opportunity to question the witness.
Good morning, Mrs. Parker. I am Travis Hines, and I just have a few questions. Do you understand that I'm the guy who was arrested after you called 911 from the library on January 22nd?
No, I didn't call 9-1-1. I called the police office.
Okay, I'll be referring to the defendant as me, Mr. Hines. You wrote a handwritten statement on January 25th, 3 days after the police station call, right?
That's correct.
Why did you do that?
Because they had misplaced the first one I wrote.
Did you contact the police and tell them you wanted to provide a statement?
No.
Did you feel like the police were asking you to write a statement or directing you to do that?
No.
And after that statement, they wanted more information from you, right?
That's correct.
And after the statement you made, did they ask for more information from you?
No.
And they captured video of you talking more about the incident, right?
That's correct.
Did you request that the police video record the conversation with you?
No.
Did you feel like the police were asking you to provide a video recorded interview or directing you to do that?
They asked me to do a video recording interview.
Did the police express sympathy for you?
Sympathy for what?
For you in your emotional state? Did the police express sympathy for you?
I wouldn't say he expressed sympathy for me.
Did their manner of expressing sympathy encourage you to be emotional in that interview?
Objection, Your Honor, asked and answered.
Yeah, I mean you asked if they asked for sympathy, and then you asked if, I'd rephrase that. I'll sustain the objection.
Did you think they were encouraging you to use words like scared or unsafe?
No.
Objection, Your Honor, same train of fact matter, just rephrased.
Yeah, sustained.
Okay, I'd like to hand the witness a copy of the statement that she wrote on January 25th to confirm her handwriting.
Okay, if you don't mind.
It's my handwriting.
Okay, is that your statement?
It is.
Before we get to the statement, I want to ask you about the police station call. Do you remember that call? I mean, it was just played.
I do.
Do you describe the person you were calling about as acting very strange?
Yes.
Then the listener had you wait just a little, right?
You have to answer yes or no.
Yes. I'm sorry. Yes.
That's okay. She has to answer yes or no. That's why I was just instructing her. It's being recorded, so she can't give aha or ahs. She has to say yes or no, so she answered yes.
Then you said acting very strange again.
You mean after they put me on hold?
Yes, ma'am.
That's correct.
Then has some backpacks. In this call you described me as then has some backpacks?
I don't think I said, then, has some backpacks. I probably said, he has some backpacks.
Then looking around the place?
Yes, you were looking around the place.
Then asked him if I could help him and asked him what did I want to help him with, right?
Yes.
Then tried to go up to the 3rd floor, which is locked, right?
Yes.
Then checking all the doors and everything. I don't know. You said that, right?
That is correct.
Then you described the man was white, male, 6 foot, 6 feet, little beard, then I think green army jacket, I think. You described him that way, right?
That is correct.
And you said, I think, twice about the green army jacket, right?
That is correct.
And that was your only phone call with police before they showed up at the library?
That is correct.
How long did it take for them to show up?
Maybe 3 to 5 minutes.
Did you tell the listener on the phone that you were scared?
No.
Did you tell the listener on the phone that the white male was unpacking his bags in a way that would conceal contents?
No.
Did you tell the listener he was casing the library?
No.
Did you say to the listener he was rattling the doors?
I said you check the exit.
Yes or no? Did you say to the listener that he was rattling the doors? Yes or no?
No.
Or setting off emergency exits?
No.
Or entering forbidden places?
No.
Then the police arrived after your call after, as you just testified, remember?
Yes.
And you talked with the male officer?
I did.
His name is Officer Davis?
That's correct.
And we might see the male officer's body-worn camera, but you said again that the person was acting weird, right?
When? Are you asking me is that what I said with the police officer when he was in the back?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that the question you're asking me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. No. I told them you were casing the place down there.
You did not tell the officer that, and I want to go through that list. You were scared? Were you scared?
Are you asking me is that what I told the officer?
With the officer's interaction.
Your Honor, this is asked and answered, and he needs to phrase his questions as a question. I think he's confusing the witness.
I agree. If you don't mind, I think you're asking her at different times and different things, so make it clear at what instance you're asking what she said and what she was asked.
In the instance with the officer interaction with Officer Davis, were you scared?
Your Honor, asked and answered. That question has been answered a number of different times.
I don't think she said what her state of mind was at the time of meeting the officer, so I'll overrule it. You can answer the question. He's asked did you tell the officer you were scared?
I cannot remember specifically if I told the officer I was scared, but I was scared.
Okay, the man was trying to conceal things in his bag when you're interacting with Officer Davis. Did you say the man was trying to conceal things in his bag?
I said that you were unpacking the bags, and you were making a lot of noise. We were not sure what you were unpacking, but, yes, we felt that you were trying to hide what you were unpacking.
You did not tell the officers the man was aggressive?
I'm sure I probably did. I can't say.
I would like to refer to Officer Davis's body cam and play that.
I don't think you can do that without Officer Davis. I don't think you have the evidence. Besides, it is still the state's case. You have the opportunity to present your own case, but as this witness is not Officer Davis and didn't have any control over that camera, I would say, I'm assuming you're objecting as you stood up.
I was, Your Honor.
I jumped you on that.
And I'll.
The problem you have is this witness did not have control over a body cam, so I don't think she would be an appropriate witness to address that, so sustained.
Or that you felt unsafe when you were interacting with the officers. Did you feel unsafe?
Your Honor, he has repeatedly asked, and this has repeatedly been answered a number of different ways, whether we're safe, whether we're scared. All of it is the same. He continually goes back to that.
I would say that's sustained. You have asked that question.
You did not tell the officers this statement. I'm going to read, quote, Parker stated that the subject then began unloading his backpacks. Parker stated that while unpacking his backpacks, the subject made efforts to conceal whatever contents he was taking out from anyone around him. Unquote. I'm talking about when you were talking to officers that arrived at the library. The male one wearing a body-worn camera. You didn't say anything like that statement I just read, did you?
I did.
And you also didn't tell the officers that the man was making the employee uncomfortable at that time when officers arrived. You didn't say anything like that, did you?
I did.
Okay, let's go to your January 25th statement. She doesn't have it in front of her. May I?
It would help for her to have it.
Okay, Mrs. Parker, where were you when you wrote this statement?
This one here?
Yes.
I was at the police office.
Before I forget, Your Honor, I would like to enter this statement into evidence.
Your Honor, objection to that. He has the witness on the stand. He's free to ask the questions at this particular point. He immediately went to a statement, but he's not even questioning on that statement.
Your response.
It doesn't seem inappropriate to introduce evidence with the witness here at any time.
I don't think you've established foundation for this particular document. You do have to establish foundation before you can offer it into evidence. So I'm going to overrule your objection at the moment, Mr. Benjamin, but you do have to establish more than just what you've done so far. So you have to establish foundation for this document to be entered into evidence.
Okay.
But I will allow you the benefit to do that.
Yes, sir, so I don't have to ask if it's a fair and accurate depiction of...
I can't be your lawyer.
Oh, I know.
I'm only a judge, so...
So is the evidence submitted? Is it submitted into evidence yet?
No.
No?
Because you haven't laid foundation for it.
Mrs. Davis is...
I'm Mrs. Parker.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Parker, I'm sorry. Is your statement a fair and accurate depiction of what you wrote?
Yes.
Okay, was your statement altered in any way?
No.
Does your statement show a clear and accurate depiction of what occurred between you on that day?
Yes.
I ask that the court to have this evidence admitted into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection.
So ordered, and that will be marked as Hines number 1. That is a witness statement of Mrs. Parker.
Okay, moving on or wait?
No, you can go ahead.
Okay, when Mrs. Parker, when you talked to the police in a video recorded interview later, you said a lot more words than those written here, didn't you?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would like to hand Mrs. Parker a transcript of her video recorded interview. Well, that's, Your Honor, I request that Mrs. Parker's video be entered into evidence and played for the court now. I wasn't allowed to have the video evidence of Mrs. Parker's video interview. I request that the video be played now. That's exculpatory evidence. I'm entitled to use it in rebuttal to statements offered by the police about what Mrs. Parker said and when she said it. My position is they manufactured evidence and manufactured later statements from Mrs. Parker, then shifted statements in time. I'm entitled to present this in my defense.
Do you have the...
Your Honor, we have that, but I think he needs to lay more foundation.
He does, but now your ruling was that you did have access to it. You did not have access to it. I just didn't let you take the document or the item with you. So you have had access to it, so I want to correct that for the record. You have a tendency to make accusations against this court and the way we do things, but you did have access to that video, did you not?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, so you had the opportunity to review it, and so that is not accurate that you did not have it, but you were not allowed to take it with you, correct?
The video I was not allowed to take, Your Honor.
Correct. So let's make that correction for the record. You did have access to it, and you now want to ask her about it. If you want to lay foundation, go right ahead.
Is that video a fair and accurate depiction of your interview at that time?
Yes.
Was the video altered in any way?
Not that I know of.
Does the video show a clear and accurate depiction of what occurred between you and the police officer?
Yes.
Your Honor, I ask that this evidence be admitted and ask that this be admitted into evidence, this video.
Well, we haven't seen the video yet, so I think we'd have to do that before we enter it into evidence.
Is this...
No, we do not. It's just one page. We're going to take a break for Mrs. Parker while we set this up.